Michael Voss is a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter for the New York Times. He is the author of Salt, Sugar, Fat: How the Food Giants Hooked Us. He's in Springfield to address the Springfield Public Forum. We thank them and we thank him for making himself available to spend time with us here on Connecting Point. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Your book begins with what I feel is just a chilling account of a meeting, 1999, secret meeting in Minneapolis, the headquarters of Pillsbury. People from Pillsbury and Kraft bring in the top people, the CEOs of the big food making companies. The CEO of the biggest of all of them really comes out after they're told there's an obesity problem. One, we should do something about it because it's right. Two, if we don't, healthcare industry and government are going to come after us. And what happens from there?
You know, it was a phenomenal meeting because these guys never get together. In fact, they spend most of their waking hours trying to figure out how to push each other off the grocery store shelf. Because you have to understand, this is a fiercely competitive industry. The head of General Mills at the time gets up and basically makes the point that the food industry has always made, which is, look, if you have a concern about obesity, we make products for that. We offer low fat this, low sugar this. We're adding whole grains to our products. We're giving people choice. But you have to remember that we have obligations not only to consumers, but to Wall Street as well, shareholders, and there is no way we could screw around with the company jewels, meaning the salt, sugar, fat on which the industry relies, and diminish the appeal of our products, because that's the bottom line.
The title of the book really says all: salt, sugar, fat, the things that taste good, make food enjoyable and interesting, if you will, give it the proper mouthfeel, one of the great phrases that you discovered that they used. But they're being, these wonderful things used right, are being misused. We, the consumers, you say being really abused, if you will. And a huge factor, you say the future, a price will be exacted from all of us because of how we are being fed and how we're feeding ourselves.
Well, look, I mean, already 1 in 3 adults are clinically obese, 1 in 5 children between the ages of 6 and 11, 26 million Americans with type 2 diabetes. I mean, it's already here and spreading throughout the world as American soda-style processed food moves around to developing countries especially. And we've always known that eating too many of these foods, like I like to call the foods you hate to love, potato chips for me, for example, will make you overweight or otherwise ill. But now we know from the documents and the interviews I was able to achieve for the book that the industry has known this for years, even as it continued adding in heaps of salt, sugar, fat to its products to make them really low cost, superbly convenient, and utterly irresistibly tasty. And I should say too that I don't view the processed food industry as this evil empire that intentionally set out to make us overweight or otherwise sick. They're doing what companies do, which is trying to make as much money as possible by selling as much product as possible. And the problem lies in their own collective dependence on salt, sugar, fat to make their products sell.
And it's all part of, well, you'd say to make the product sell, an amazingly huge industry in this country and worldwide. I was amazed what a huge part of the U.S. economy, how much money, how many workers the food industry is.
$1 trillion industry if you include the restaurant service as well. It is colossal.
You mentioned 300 manufacturers, 1.4 million workers. So that is not an easy industry to challenge, whether you're in government, which doesn't do a lot of challenging of this industry, or the healthcare field. You've got an automatic lobby built in there that says, don't mess with our work.
Well, you do, and it's troubling for people inside these industries. I was really struck by how many sort of top officials in these companies, scientists, marketing people, have come to have some regret about what they've done, given our increasing dependence, reliance on processed foods. The inventor of the Lunchables, his goal was to save jobs at Oscar Mayer back in the 80s because we were eating less meat to avoid sodium, salt, and calories and saturated fat. He turned around and invented the Lunchables with a really worthy goal in mind of saving those assembly line jobs at Oscar Mayer. Over the years, he came to realize that the Lunchables became a bit of a poster child for the obesity crisis, in that it leads to sort of what nutrition experts call this sort of mindless eating, one hand to mouth, cutting the brain out of the equation, little cooking, little preparation, little thinking about the food. Again, conducive to overeating, and that's the real issue here. It's not that salt, sugar, fat is bad, it's that too much is bad.
And in all of this, for any number of reasons, including the big part of the economy it represents and all the jobs, government is pretty much complicit in what's happening here.
I was really struck by how the companies in many ways are more powerful than the federal agencies that are supposedly there to regulate them on our behalf. I talk about the growth of cheese. Our consumption of cheese has tripled in the past few decades, in part through assistance from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which is deeply conflicted in the whole health issue. Most of its money is spent promoting agriculture, food industry. A tiny smidgen is there to advise Americans on how to eat healthier. And as you can imagine, that advice basically runs counter to the marketing plans of all the food giants.
And one thing that struck me, and I had to do a little mental math myself, you mentioned that the average American eats in a year an amazing amount of sugar. I think if I multiply it out, the poundage of sugar, it's equal to, I think, 14 5-pound bags of sugar. I mean, that's quite a visual if you can think of that.
Yes.
70 pounds of sugar, and that's mostly not from the spoon or two you put in coffee or maybe on cornflakes in the morning.
We are hardwired for sugar. Every one of our 10,000 taste buds is there, just ready to send that signal to the pleasure center of the brain. Wow, Michael, I love that sweet taste. Eat more. And the industry has figured out how to hit the perfect amount of sweetness in their products. You mentioned the lingo that they use, which is so wonderful. They ended up calling this the bliss point. Perfect amount of sugar, not too much, not too less. And they have created bliss points for products all around the supermarket. And so the nightmare for nutrition experts is that when children now, eat groceries, they are expecting sweetness in everything they eat. Bread has sugar for a bliss point. Low-fat yogurt can have as much sugar as ice cream. Some brands of pasta sauce can have the equivalent of a couple of Oreo cookies in a half-cup serving. This has taught children to expect sweetness in everything. So when you go to the produce aisle and try to get them to eat that broccoli, which may have a little bit of a bitter note, you're going to get even more resistance.
And you don't just tell us the scary stuff. You give us some approaches and some answers. You tell us, read labels, but know what you're reading and know what it means, because it a lot of times tells you how much the calorie count is or the sugar amount is, but there are tricks there in terms of how it's defined, serving size.
One of the trickiest ones are packages of snacks where you have 2 or 3 or 4 servings in the box or the bag. Research shows that many of us will eat the whole thing, but the nutritional facts box will give you only the calories and the sugar and the fat and the salt for one tiny little serving. So you have to sort of keep that in mind. I also love when I shop now to look at the front of the package, because that's where you see the touting. And these days you're seeing a whole lot of what we call health washing, added calcium, added protein, gluten-free, less calories, less this, more that. And that's usually a tip-off to pay even more attention to the fine print on the side or the back of the package, because they will put their best foot forward in hopes that you get distracted and maybe don't pay attention to the other foot.
Well, the book is Salt, Sugar, Fat, How the Food Giants Hooked Us, and author Michael Moss. Thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, great to talk to you.